The Teen Junction with Cindy Poluta. Empowering teens one conversation at a time.
Welcome to another episode of the Teen Junction podcast with me, Cindy Poluta. As always, a podcast for parents and caregivers as we try and navigate these very tricky and sometimes uncertain adolescent years. There's 8 billion people in the world, and what we're discussing today affects about 4 billion of those 8 billion people. But yet, when we talk about this, the majority of people get so uncomfortable. We're talking periods, yes, menstruation, because it's not just a monthly conversation that we need to have. It's a lifelong conversation. And our guest today is menstrual activist Candice Chirwa. As she likes to call herself, the Minister of Menstruation on social media, Candice is a menstrual activist, busting the stigma to help young people, especially girls, to feel confident with and informed about their bodies. She's also written a children's book called Menstruation Station. So Candice, thank you so much today for coming.
Thank you for having me. Ministerial greetings, all protocols observed, just have to make sure that the protocols are observed. We don't know who might be in the building, but thank you for having me.
Firstly, for those listening who have no idea who you are, I mean, us in the media space, we know who you are.
Yeah.
But for those listening, they've come across this podcast for a first time, maybe via Prime Media Plus or Spotify. They're like, who is this lady and what does she do? In a nutshell, break it down for us.
Sure. I think every time people hear the Minister of Menstruation, they're like, is that a real portfolio? I mean, with the amount of ministers we have, it could be. But
it should be.
It should be. But I'm really passionate about changing the stigma and myths associated around menstrual health. A lot of young girls in particular in this country, when they have their first period for the first time, they feel like they're going to die or they have a disease. And that was the experience that I had when I had my period at the age of 10. No one had the conversation with me. No one prepped me about it. And it was insane that for me, growing up until I was about 21, when I discovered the phenomenon period poverty, that I was like, how have we just made this such a taboo?
Yeah.
And something needed to change. So I was at the time doing my consultancy at the United Nations on menstrual health. And then I decided to do my master's in menstrual health. And then that just prompted this movement called period positivity, which we do through my organization, Curate, where we do menstrual health education workshops. So that has just been sort of like my passion for the past 8 years now. And every time people see me, they're just like, Minister. They don't even call me Candice anymore. It is what it is. But it's just, that's the passion for me, just to normalize and make young girls in particular celebrate their first period instead of meet it with fear.
So, I mean, professionally, this has been approximately like a 10 to 11-year journey for you. So you've seen and heard so many stories from 10 years ago to now. So what are the biggest challenges that you think teenage girls are facing today when it comes down to being educated about their periods?
Well, beyond just not having access to the period products, I think there's so much. I mean, when I think of just how many young girls feel like they cannot go to a place of worship on their period, cannot go to the swimming pool whilst they're on their period or the ocean on their period, they can't wash their hair. There's just like a long list of thou shall nots on your period, and it just isolates them. And I think what we tend to forget is that because we're going through hormonal fluctuations the week before our period, which is also known as PMS or premenstrual syndrome, and then our actual period, we tend to feel very in our head. We're feeling very anxious, very terrified. Overwhelmed. And so if you don't have the access to the necessary period products, but you still want to go to school, that becomes a very terrifying time.
Yeah.
So young girls are facing not only just a product issue, but also a self-esteem and self-confidence issue.
Okay.
And then when you're thinking about having the access to medication, which is also very expensive, medical care, which is also very pricey, having a period becomes expensive.
Yeah.
So it just becomes seen as a luxury that only a few people can afford period products, can see a gynecologist, and young girls just then tend to isolate themselves, don't want to socialize, and in certain cases will stay at home, and then they miss out on school. So I think this is just, again, what I say is that it's a human rights issue that's not getting enough attention because we're only treating it as just provide the products, period poverty would be solved. But no, we still need to deal with the education issue. We still need to deal with the access to sanitation. Still need to deal with the issue of, access to medical care that we're not feeling discriminated against. It's just holistically, we need a holistic intervention.
I think we need to stop making it feel like an absolute burden.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it really is it's so expensive. Sanitary products are so expensive. And to be fair, there's not much option on the market, like in terms of what women actually need, if we're going to call a spade a spade. But in terms of education challenges, I think the only way we can educate is if the people who are doing the educating themselves feel confident, and feel empowered. Okay with talking about it.
100%. When I think about the first time I learned about menstruation, it was in biology lesson. And it was just speaking about what the menstrual cycle is. So, what happens every 21 to 35 days, this good old egg is trying to get fertilized. It doesn't get fertilized and you have your period. And then it doesn't speak more about like the symptoms that you go through and how you take care of yourself. And in particular, the mental health aspect associated with that. So you're just thinking, okay, so this is very technical. It just covers like a technical aspect and that's it.
Yeah.
And I think that is still the case even in school settings. So you'll have young girls in particular having an understanding of what menstruation is, but not contextualizing it to their lifestyles.
Yeah.
And then also realizing that if I'm experiencing period pain and I don't have access to Nurofen, for instance, I can use hot water bottle, I can drink ginger tea. There's
options.
There's conversations and options. And also that feeling of empowerment to say, you don't always have to use a pad for the rest of your life. You can use a tampon or a menstrual cup or period underwear because those are the options that exist, but then linking it to their lifestyle specifically. So that's what we do with Curate. We just bring this period positivity with our workshops where young people can just feel confident and empowered. And also our workshops target young men and boys because they are menstrual allies too, right? They're going to become partners, they're going to be colleagues in the workspace. So I'm over men who are always doing these like terrible PMS jokes. I think it's just, like, oh, she must be on her period.
You get angry, you're on your period.
It's so outdated, but I think it's now a matter of let's bring them into the conversation and learn and then be menstrual allies in a positive way.
So I'm glad you bring the men into it because as parents, for parents who like you yourself weren't educated young enough about it. Do you think that if I've got a daughter, I need to actually educate myself quite early on and then get quite comfortable with having that conversation with her because it's quite it's scary for a baby. Like, at 10 years old, you were a baby. To be like, okay, hold on, I'm going to bleed. And none of my other friends are bleeding. And what do I do? So how do parents who weren't educated properly themselves break that cycle of non-education around periods?
It's also, the age is interesting because it's getting younger. So there are young girls who are starting at as early as 8.
It is.
So I don't know if you recall your first period conversation with your parental guardian and how that like tone or setting was.
I actually can't. No, babe, I'm much older than you. Like I'm like the Flintstones old, babe. So I do remember. I do remember it happening, but I don't remember the conversation. I think my mother did actually have a conversation with me about it.
Okay. So,
only because I opened the You magazine.
Okay.
And there was a 12-year-old girl who was pregnant. And I was like, that's weird. Okay. And then I opened the next page and there was an advert for Lilette's.
Oh.
Tampons.
Okay.
And I said to her, what are these?
Okay.
And then that opened the door for the conversation of what could happen.
Okay.
But I think these days, it's so scary to because it can make children fearful.
Sure.
So how do we as parents who weren't educated on how to then educate them?
So what I realized when my mom was having the conversation with me, so firstly, it was almost as if I had burnt all the Tupperware and I was in trouble because it gave that tone.
It gives like an edge.
You're sitting across and then it's like you're in trouble for something that you're not in control, So I think for the first thing is setting the environment in a right, positive way. Sit next to your child and encourage them to ask questions, right? Also realize that as a parent, you're not going to know everything, but you are the anchor of being like a safe space for your child to just constantly go to and just constantly be like, what is it that you want to know? I only had one conversation with my mom.
And you were like, no, thanks.
She was just like, this is a pad. This is how you use a pad. Make sure no one knows it. And that's it. And I think the way in which she emphasized no one should know you're on your period, I really carried that for my entire young adolescence life until I was 21. And so I would go over and above by ensuring that I'm wearing like 2 pads in my underwear and wearing
so that
like
nobody ever sees.
And wearing dark clothing because again, the tone of which she presented that message was to say you really should hide yourself. So I think it starts with yourself first, right? As a parent, realizing that menstruation is the last stage of puberty. So puberty is that growing stage where you have to be able to recognize that your child is growing up, right?
Okay.
And going through different bodily changes. So you don't just start having the conversation when they start their period. You start having the conversation as soon as they start growing up and saying, you're going to notice and realize that your body's changing and there's nothing wrong with that. It's part of growing up, right? And I think as parents, we also need to unlearn any myths or taboos that we carried ourselves. So my mom presented the same conversation she had with her mom. So it's intergenerational. And the only way we break that cycle is through just learning and having conversations with experts or listening to podcasts such as The Teen Junction, shout out people for you, and just being able to learn and unlearn, because that's the process of it. I had to unlearn 11 years of all this period stigma and myths to then be able to be this period advocate to say, no, we need to be period positive. So start with reading, start with speaking to people, start with asking simple questions, because honestly, at the end of the day, nothing bad's going to happen to you when you say period blood or menstruation. Like, it's a natural biological function and it happens to more than 50% of the people in this world. So we need to realize that. Yeah.
Yet when somebody says it, the whole room goes, oh. Like if you're in a room of people, you go like, well, I'm on my period. Everyone is like, oh, are you supposed to share that? I had a very different experience. My mom was so excited. She phoned everybody to tell them that I had got my period, and I was a woman now, and I was so embarrassed. I wanted to die.
In some societies, they're actually period parties. So when like literally, like I kid you not, when
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet, Candice.
When starts the first period, it's kind of like a sleepover, right? You bring, and this is where you're doing the information sharing in a positive way, where if you're asking like questions and you've got like a trusted adult or a trusted facilitator and it's fun, you're all in your onesies, you're having a good time, but it's just a space of like positivity, right? Because I don't want to be too academic, but when we think about it before, I guess we could say like, pre-agrarian societies would always celebrate menstrual health as a healthy and vital time. They'd even have celebrations when someone was having their period every single month. And so something happened when we had religion into the chat to say, when you are on your period, you're considered to be impure or dirty. And then this just gets twisted, and then it gets translated from generation to generation. And even in certain societies, you'll have some young girls who are banished into menstrual huts. Now, you're probably thinking, oh, is this like a staycation time on Airbnb? No. These are young girls who are banished more than 10 kilometers away from home, don't have access to any form of help, services. And in certain cases, there are people who take opportunities to predate, like sort of be predators towards them.
Oh, gosh.
So you see, now you're associating your period as this violent time.
Yeah.
So we need to go back to just seeing it as this, yes, it's a natural thing.
It's normal.
It's normal.
It's
Sometimes
like sweating.
The symptoms can be bullying, I must admit. But we need to, at least when a girl has her period for the first time, not come from a perspective of stay away, don't tell anyone, you're disgusting. But more just be like, your period has happened, you're growing up, yay.
So you touched on it. You touched on it a little bit before. Are there signs that I need to look out for that my child might be getting? Because I mean, I'm sure your mom had a suspicion when you were about 9, but thought no, because we can say body changes, right? We can say, but sometimes kids their bodies just change.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because when I think of it, when I was 10, I did develop quicker. Like my hips widened, my breasts were developing, but I was hiding. So I was wearing baggy clothes because, again, no one had that conversation with me. So I really thought something was wrong with me. And if someone did tell me that, no, what you're going through is normal, you're growing up, then I'd be like, okay, cool, this is all good. So I think even from my mom's perspective, when my period started, she was very shocked because, again, I went really, I went to many lengths to hide that, I'm growing up through these things.
Yeah.
And so, with puberty, it's different with girls and boys. They grow taller, your hips widen, your breasts develop, your voice gets deeper. And I think as parents, we have to be we have to look and monitor just to see that, okay, our kids are changing.
Yeah.
And I think also when they have their birthdays, that's also a physical indicator that your kid is growing up. So as soon as they start turning 8, just start looking around. It is a bit early, but I always say the average age of your period is 13. So start having those conversations as early as possible so that when they are having their period, they're prepared and not terrified.
Or rather prepared than be caught unaware, right?
Exactly.
Okay. And then, so what's a good way to start the conversation? Because at the same time, we live in a very tricky time. These kids are well aware of what's going on.
Sure.
So you don't want to say, oh, your body's changing, and then fat shame the child.
Yeah.
Because there's also that, you don't want to give them body dysmorphia, all of that kind of stuff. So what's a good way to begin the conversation, especially if like your teenager hasn't started their period? And then we touched on it. I mean, I've seen online, they're beautiful like period boxes that you can gift your child that's got options in it, but not all of us can afford that.
Yeah, that's
so
the
what
thing.
is like, where do we start the conversation? And then like what tools can we use?
Well, I think it's really dependent on the relationship that the parent has with their child. And again, when I think about what I wish I had, I really just wish someone just normalized it for me and just made me feel, comforted me. Because that, like, honestly, when I say I felt like I was dying, I really felt like I was dying. And I think if we are in a space where the younger you start your period or the younger you start puberty, and then conversations like that is only being had in high school, then you have to be affirming and comforting to your child and not really, sort of pointing fingers and like saying something must be wrong with you.
Yes.
You know, we need to take you to the doctor to check what's happening, unless there's something like a period condition of intense pain.
Yes.
Sure. But I think with parents, it's a matter of, again, setting that safe environment to, when you're sitting with your child, don't sit them across from you. Like, you know, like...
That was a really triggering
like you're trying to
setup
punish
for you.
them. Just sit next to them. If you feel that perhaps having the conversation with, would you like to read something together? Is there any questions that you have about what's going on? Then that's a good starting point. But I also feel that with parents, it's really, again, just comforting your child. So I always just say, starting from the beginning of saying, okay, not the beginning to say like Adam and Eve. No, that's way too far. That's way too far.
Come back.
But more about to say, you know, my child. So you've reached a stage of growing up, and growing up is fun. But with that means it comes with a different set of responsibilities where you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of your body. So this is what you can expect. Like, it's totally normal. I think that's, again, always emphasizing that point of it's totally normal.
It's normal.
But I think when it comes to periods, because, you know, what happens is when you say it's totally normal and then a young girl will have really intense period pain, she'll still think it's totally normal. So it's just a matter of saying, this is what you can expect when it comes to your period in terms of symptoms such as fatigue, bloating, some slight cramping and pain. But if you experience really intense pain, please make sure you tell me or daddy or tell your teachers that we know that we need to just check it out and make sure you're okay.
So you work directly with lots of teenage girls, right? So what are some of the most common questions or misconceptions that they've come to you with?
Oh, wow. Is it normal to menstruate twice a month? And I think with a young girl who starts her period, you will experience an irregular period. So you can expect maybe having a shorter cycle, but then your period will sort of regulate itself as you get older.
It takes about 2 years. I read somewhere that, am I right? It takes about 2 years. So as parents, we shouldn't really worry if they're not in a set cycle.
Exactly. And they might experience some spotting. So it will be irregular. You'll have an irregular flow, but that's totally normal and totally okay. Then I also think, again, a lot of young girls associate really negative conceptions with period products such as tampons and menstrual cups. So they feel that the tampon or menstrual cup will hurt them, that it will break their virginity, when in fact that's not the case. I just think we have associated a lot of social things with these period products when they should actually just be period products to manage and use menstrual blood. That's it.
Yeah.
We also, I think... Again, so interesting enough, there was one girl who said, is it okay for me to play sports on my period? Because I'm worried that other people will smell me on my period. So again, that fear of like...
Everyone can see. Everyone can see.
But also everyone can smell. Like, so that's why I need to just distance myself. Again, that's something that we say, no one can smell you unless your period product is over-leaked. But again, when you are playing sports, there are different period products that work well for sports. So some people worry that a disposable pad will get ringed up. So maybe you want to use a reusable pad or period underwear that works best. So I think for me, the fascinating one is always just like, I can't swim in the ocean because sharks will eat me on my period.
Isn't it the funniest thing, right? Because like you go, well, you read somewhere, because you probably watched Shark Week on Discovery, right? And you read somewhere that sharks can literally smell blood from 10 kilometers away. So now if I'm on my period, this is it. They're coming to chomp me.
Literally. And
so is that not true?
No, it's not true.
Okay. And I learned something today.
And even if you are swimming, you would either be using a tampon or menstrual cup, or you'd be using like period swimming wear, which is a new thing as well. And the period blood won't come out, and all of a sudden, like, sharks are like, dip, here we go, detected a menstruator, it's on site. But again, all of these myths are created as a way to sort of tell us not to do anything on our period. Like, you should just stay at home and isolate. But I always just say, anything you can do, I can do bleeding. And whether I want to,
not
play sports.
I can do bleeding.
Yes, and then I want to play sports, and I want to go to work. I can. Like, my period should just be a place of empowerment. But also, again, like, if you want to rest, if you want to just take some time off, you're more than welcome to do that. And that's why I'm also advocating for menstrual leave in the workplace. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. What should parents then? What am I giving to my child to have on hand in case I'm not with her and she gets her first period, like at school, or she's at a friend, or whatever? So
a pouch, if you have like a pouch, put her go-to menstrual products, whether it's a panty liner, a disposable pad, or tampons.
Wouldn't a tampon though be like? I feel like a tampon is too soon, because especially for that first one, because it's such a foreign concept of having to put something inside you, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of girls I've experienced with feel like that's a violation.
Sure.
It's like a bit too much too soon, especially like a 10, 11-year-old. So I feel like tampons are almost something that they morph into.
They morph into it, especially if they like swimmers, for instance, or they love playing sports. I mean, I'm just, again, listing all the period products that if a menstruator wanted to use, a young girl wanted to use, it's just a matter of having the choice. So again, let's imagine that they're about to have their first period.
And they're in primary school.
And they're in primary school. So the best one is either panty liner or your disposable pad. If you've explained to them how to use a reusable pad, then that's also fine. But I think the disposable and the panty liner is the best to start. And you've got a pouch. And I'd also recommend maybe just having some painkillers.
Like just two Panados or something.
Just either two Panados. A hot water bottle can get a bit tricky in terms of management. You can't carry it.
No. Let me come back, Candice. You can't be carrying around a hot water bottle for 5 years in case today's the day.
I'm just saying. It just might be too technical. In winter season it works, but not for your first period. But yeah, some painkillers you can put in the pouch. So we say disposable pad, panty liners. And then I think it's just, again, prepping them, to say this is your period pouch. Just always make sure it's in your bag just in case anything does happen, and that you're always just prepped for it. That's the best way.
And how can we make the conversations more inclusive to include brothers? And I don't even think that just because I think actually we need to use this platform to say, hang on, just because you don't have girls doesn't mean that your sons shouldn't know about this. Doesn't mean you get out of jail free card, because sons become husbands.
Sure. Yeah.
So how do I make this conversation inclusive?
Look, there's always been, when I think of it, when I have conversations with my male friends and they go back to the first time they encountered like seeing someone carrying a pad, or it would actually be their mother or their sister, there's always this natural curiosity to be like, is that, like, what is that? Is that a big plaster? What's happening? Yeah. And then oftentimes, I guess because, I don't know if parents were trying to protect their boy children, they'd always just be like, no, don't worry, it's not for you. You don't need to learn about it. And that is the first mistake there, right? It's a matter of just saying, okay, this is a menstrual product, right? And mommy or your sister uses this because we go through a process called menstruation every single month. And nothing bad's happening. It's just something that we have to deal with. And we just need these products to help manage our menstrual blood. Done, right? Like that's the conversation. What I often see happening in like, especially like a primary school or high school setting with young boys is that they usually laugh because they don't know. So if they see, for instance, a young girl staining her uniform, they'll just laugh and they don't know. But when we have those conversations earlier to say, if someone is menstruating and you see a stain, the best thing you can do, actually the thing you should do, is help them.
Like offer them your jersey to tie around the waist.
Tie it around their waist, or maybe take them to the principal or the teacher that can help, and then maybe they can. I know not all schools have like a sick room. We used to have a sick room, and I'd always on my period go to the sick room. But yeah, like always just offer to help. And I think that's just something that, especially in our workshops, we tell young boys: if you see your friend, your daughter, your sister rather, not struggling, but just not their usual selves. Just to step in and say, what is it that I can do to help? Is there anything that you need? That's the importance there of just building that allyship. Because as you mentioned, these are brothers that will then become husbands. These are brothers that will then become work colleagues. So fathers. So we can't continue to just continue the cycle of silence. And we also can't continue the cycle of ignorance. Yeah. Because I think, again, you'll see like these pop culture jokes about what menstruation is. And it's like, okay, yes, we do have mood swings purely because of hormonal fluctuations, but there's a lack of education there, right? So I also encourage men sometimes to ask questions, especially if you're dating someone who menstruates, to say, baby, what is it that you need on your period? Yeah. Like, what is it that I can do? Like, at any time, do you need me to get any products? Like, do you need me to get you chicken with wings? And sometimes people will get like chicken in the pads with the wing. It's a weird thing, but like I think it's an.
Okay, like, I'll just take your word for it.
No, when a lady says, "I want pads with wings," there's a guy that brought pads and chicken wings.
Oh, because the pads, to explain those who are listening who don't know, a pad comes with, in inverted commas, wings, and the wings fold over so that they can hold onto your underwear.
Yes. So, I mean, the chicken wings are welcome. But when we say pads of wings, we actually refer to the type of product. I mean, there's also like someone who was asking his girlfriend, does the yellow signify lemon? Is the pink strawberry? Like, in terms of the color of the product.
Of the color of the packaging.
But it's just the color of the packaging, right? So I think, again, having these conversations with your partner and just saying, what is it that you need? How would you like for me to step up, especially during your period? Really helps. And I think it differs for people. I always love chocolate. I always love receiving e-wallets on my period. It makes me...
So, I mean, we're now living in a time where there's no more, not that there's no more, but the nuclear family, mom, dad, and the children is no longer the commonplace, right? We're seeing a lot more families with absent parents. And some of it's an absent mom or a woman that's not around. And then you've got teenage daughters. So as a dad who maybe grew up in an all-man house and only has teenage daughters, where do they start? Because that must be really difficult.
I mean, look, I think
you've got an initiative, right?
Yeah, we have an initiative
called Dads for Pads.
Dads for Pads, yes. So I can't even imagine the type of conversations like the broskies have when they're trying to understand, like, yo, this 1 week my girl was just off. I don't know what's happening. And there's this lack of educational understanding that, we go through not only our PMS, but also our period. And why we created Dads for Pads was really just to fill in that gap, to say, if you don't really have anyone to speak to, you can rely on our resource to learn about menstrual health, but also to advocate for the eradication of period poverty in SA. Because I always just say it's ludicrous that it still exists. Yeah. I think it's a natural biological function. It cannot be that we are still having these conversations. But it can't just be the responsibility of women and girls only to end period poverty. We need men to stand up. We need men to rally. And we also need men to just have conversations among themselves as to what it is that they can do better. But they can only do that once they've been educated and informed. So we created this platform just to say, here's resources where you can learn about menstrual health, but here's also a place in which we can just show how men should step up as fathers, in particular, when it comes to periods. It's fathers that will be support systems. Usually they're also sometimes the decision makers in some terms of, are we putting food on the table, buying pads? And that's unfortunately reality. So they need to understand that providing pads or access to period products for their girl child ensures their ability to go to school, their ability to have a better future. But we also then need to advocate for government to make these period products free. So for fathers, for men, again, I think when I'm having conversations with my male friends, I'm always just saying to them, no question is a stupid question. Yeah. Because I understand that you came from an environment where people were sheltering you from not having these conversations. Even in schools, I found it very weird when girls were being separated from boys and having the conversations around sexual education. And you'd find that the girls are in the classroom and the boys are playing on the field.
Yeah.
You know, that disconnect for me just didn't exist. Like, it just didn't make sense. So I think, again, like having these conversations, asking the right questions, and honestly just leaning on the support that we've created as Curate, but also leaning on the support as a Minister of Menstruation to say, my girlfriend is going through this, what can I do? How do I help? Like, that is super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, any last comment?
Sure.
What you want people to take away from today, and
Yeah.
more importantly, where can people find you if they would like you to
Yes.
come and educate their school and their corporates and their daddies?
Definitely. Look, I think the final thing I say is that I don't want to be the Minister of Menstruation anymore because I don't want period poverty to exist. That's like, I want to be able to step
You would
down.
like your portfolio to become redundant?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, no, but I mean, like, in the sense of the work's been done.
Okay,
You
I
know what I'm
love this.
saying? Like, I want to be in a space where I can actually say, I'm retiring because the work is done. Like, we've achieved all we needed to achieve. Period products are
boxes.
available. The infrastructure is there. Young girls feel confident and empowered. Boys are menstrual allies. Like, that for me is the goal. But we can only do it when we're all taking up the initiative to be period positive. It can't just be the Minister of Menstruation doing it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm advocating for awareness, but I'm also saying we ourselves need to be period positive. So it starts at home. It starts with you. And then I guess, like,
If people want to reach you?
if people want to reach me, Minister of Menstruation on all platforms. People can also follow Curate, which is in my bio as well. And yeah, I'm always looking forward to speaking to people, especially men, having them experience the period pain element to build empathy and understanding. It's my favorite part of my job, I swear. It's lovely. But yeah, people can reach out to me on Minister of Menstruation. On all
And now
socials.
you have you've brought something very interesting into today's episode.
Yes.
And we have two victims, and I don't want to say victims, two volunteers is the V word I'm looking for.
Yes.
So Candice came into studio with a simulator, right? And this machine, simulates period cramp?
Yeah, period cramps.
Okay, so we are going to, if you'd like to watch the video, we are going to put this on our socials for those that are listening to the audio version of this. But I'm hoping we can find them because they seem to have run away. But our executive producers on 947 Danele and the club, Ryan and Tato, said, no, we'll do it. We'll do it. We'll step forward and volunteer to be the guinea pigs, or just to see. I've seen these machines on TikTok, but with the labor one, like how much labor. So I'm very keen for them to try this. To try this. I'm calling them in. I'm waving at them frantically. I'm going, come, and they actually look quite excited to try this little machine.
Yeah.
And all the cameramen are giggling. Just so you know, when Candice walked in and she said, "Who's going to do it?" They all ran away. But Ryan and Tato said, "No, sure, no problem.
Gladly.
Let's do this."
Love
so, yeah, guys. Welcome to the Teen Junction, Tato and Ryan.
Do you
They're
love
ready
your
to
job?
rock and roll. I think we'll probably end this podcast with them screaming. So from me, thank you for always listening. You can reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram if you'd like to reach out with any other topics. And yeah, stand by for the sound effects of Ryan and Tato feeling what it's like to be a woman on their period, and then go along and watch the visual of this episode. Till next time, take it.
PrimeMediaPlus.com. Your connection to what matters most.